In today's perfect pronunciation practice, we're talking K-pop. Well, K-pop high schools, that is. Some of the key points in today's pronunciation practice will be the perfect P pronunciation, South versus Southern, because they look the same, but they sound quite different, and we'll even touch on how to differentiate the different ED endings. And of course, we'll be doing this study session style. So we'll be covering all areas of English, including speaking, listening, reading, grammar, vocabulary, and writing. So let's dive right in. Today's lesson will revolve around this article from Ingo, so you won't need any tools or materials. Just you and those listening ears. Now, while we'll be mainly focusing on speaking and pronunciation today, I do have a little vocabulary challenge for you. The purpose of this vocabulary practice is to figure out words in context, which is an extremely valuable language skill. I want you to pay attention to these 6 vocabulary words throughout the article. The words are intensive, dedicate, compose, prestigious, graduate, and collaborate. Now, you'll notice that I blocked out the definitions of the words. So instead of looking up the words in a dictionary or Googling them, you're going to look at the words around them, look at how they are used, and that will help you figure out what they mean. So after our pronunciation practice, I'm going to give you a little quiz on the definitions, synonyms, and usages of these 6 challenge words. Sound good? So now let's get into our perfect pinpoint pronunciation practice. So for this practice, I will first read a paragraph out loud, then we'll carefully go back through it to check out all of those key pronunciation and fluency points. And after that, we will read it out loud together so that you can get in your speaking and pronunciation practice. Let's get started. Whiting! So the title of our article is K-pop High Schools Open in Busan and Singapore. Let's begin. K-pop, short for Korean pop, is one of the world's most popular genres of music, and groups like BTS and Blackpink have huge numbers of fans all over the globe. So let's look at a few pronunciation points. First of all, notice how I pronounced pop. Pop. In general, with the P sound, it's pop. Pop. But when P is at the end of the word, you can actually cut that P sound. There's no need to do the air after it. It might sound a little unnatural. So your mouth will still go into that P shape, but you just don't push out the air at the end. So instead of pop, it's pop. Pop. We're still stopping that air, but we're not going to push it out. So K-pop, Korean pop. Another word that I would like to highlight is genres. Genres. So a lot of people see the G and they think it's gone or genres or genres, but this G has a very different pronunciation from most other G sounds in the English language. So it's not J, and it's definitely not G. I like to think of it as almost a like Z plus J sound. So if you think about the Z sound, it has a long Z, like buzzing inside your mouth, right? And it's longer, Z. But J is short, J, J, J. So you're still going to have a similar shape inside of your mouth with that J, J, but it'll be longer and a little more buzzy, like the Z. Zh, zh. Does that make sense? And then that RES is actually making a ruz sound. So it's not genres, it's genres, genres. This word actually comes from French, and a lot of words that come from French into English have some unique ways of spelling. So let's look at a fluency point, specifically with this phrase, numbers of fans all over the globe. You'll notice that I am blending a lot of those words together. And that's because a lot of the words start or end with a vowel sound. So let's look at the first one. Of. Of starts with a vowel sound. So we will blend it with the word before. Numbers of. All also starts with that vowel sound, so we can blend it. Fans all. Fans all. Over also starts with that vowel sound. All over. All over. They sound like one word. And then here with the, it ends with that vowel sound, so we can connect it to the next word. The globe. The globe. And we can also make that E a lot shorter in the. It doesn't have to say the globe. It can be the globe. The globe. So now this phrase sounds like numbers of fans all over the globe. It's almost like one word. I often joke with my students that to sound as fluent and natural as possible in English, you should be a little bit breathless at the end of a sentence because all of the words kind of blend into one. So now let's go through this paragraph one more time, and I want you to read it with me. K-pop, short for Korean pop, is one of the world's most popular genres of music, and groups like BTS and Blackpink have huge numbers of fans all over the globe. Excellent. Let's move on to the next paragraph. But becoming a K-pop superstar isn't something that just happens overnight. Many K-pop artists have to go through years of intensive training before they can release any music. So in that previous paragraph, we talked about that last P in K-pop, how it's not pop. But because we have that vowel sound after it with artists, when we blend this together, it sounds like K-pop artists. So that P kind of goes over to the A, and it sounds like partists in a way. So K-pop artists. So you're getting more of that P sound. We also have more of that blending with becoming a, superstar isn't, happens overnight. We're blending that as well. And just be careful with that pronunciation of through, because it's often confused with thought and though. So you have through, thought, though. They all look basically the same, but they do have very different vowel sounds because sometimes English is the worst. I also want to point out the connection between through and years. So we've been talking about how these vowel sounds will connect to the next word. And you can see here we have G and H. Those are not vowels, but it's a vowel sound. Ooh, through. So because it makes that ooh vowel sound, ooh, it will blend. So this will sound like through years. So let's read it out loud together. But becoming a K-pop superstar isn't something that just happens overnight. Many K-pop artists have to go through years of intensive training before they can release any music. How was that? Let's move on to our next paragraph. In South Korea, there are a number of after-school academies for training the K-pop stars of the future. And there are even high schools specializing in K-pop training. I used to teach at an after-school academy in South Korea, but it was for English, not K-pop, obviously. Let's look at that pronunciation of South. South. Now, this can be tricky for a lot of students because there is the S and the TH sound. Many people will do the same sound, but they are clearly different. So for the S sound, your tongue is behind your teeth and your teeth are together. S, s. You can see my teeth are touching and you cannot see my tongue at all. That's a key point. But with that TH, you can clearly see that my tongue is between my teeth. I'm not biting my tongue. That would hurt. But my tongue is between my teeth. They are touching it. So you gotta make sure that when you have these words that have an S and a TH, they can be tricky. First, your tongue will be in your mouth, and then you gotta get it out. South, south. Also, with the OU, you'll notice that this makes the ow sound, kind of like cow or bow, or if someone hits your arm, ow. Okay, so ow. Let's also look at the word academies. Academies. You'll notice that I'm emphasizing that second syllable. Academies. It is not academies. However, with the word academics, you will emphasize this third syllable, academics. So we have academies and academics. They're very similar words, but they do have different stresses. And of course, we still need to keep in mind those vowel sounds at the beginning and ends of words. So if we look down here with this phrase, and there are even high schools specializing in K-pop training. We have vowels here, but it's not there. It's not a vowel sound. This is a consonant sound. But right here with the A, that's the vowel sound. So it'll still blend. There are, and then are even. There are even. And that's a lot of R's. I understand that. It feels weird even for me to say it. So you just have to slow down a little bit and make sure you're emphasizing those R's correctly and blending with the vowel sounds. So let's read this together. In South Korea, there are a number of after-school academies for training the K-pop stars of the future. And there are even high schools specializing in K-pop training. Let's move on to the next paragraph. The first high school dedicated to K-pop, the High School of Korean Pop and Performing Arts, opened in South Chungcheong Province in 2020. So we have a few things to look at in here. First of all, if you noticed, my tone changed with this phrase, the High School of Korean Pop and Performing Arts. Do you know why? That's because we have these commas right here, which show that it's a little extra sprinkle of information. when we have these extra bits of information, we'll change the tone of our voice, usually make it a little bit lower. Now, if you're reading this to yourself, it doesn't matter. But if you are giving a presentation, like a speech or something for your school or work, this is something that you need to do just to let the listeners know that this is extra information. Also, a little fun thing that some people forget is right here. Hi. Hi. That GH is silent. And this will sound the same as hi. Hello. I don't know why there's the GH. The next thing that I want to point out is the year. Now, I said 2020, but it's also perfectly okay to say 2020. It's really your choice. The only time it matters is if it's the years 2000 to 2009. You must say 2000. But after that, it's whatever you want. So you can say 2010, 2010, 2020, 2020. Who cares? You just choose your favorite. I know I will mix it up within the same conversation. It doesn't matter. Now, this next point that I will discuss is very specific for Korean language when it's translated to English. So if this is not something that you care about, you can skip to this timestamp. But for people that are interested in Korea, maybe you love K-pop, maybe you want to visit Korea or go work there. This is something that you should pay attention to. So you'll notice with the pronunciation of chung, chong, that these are two different sounds. It's not chung, chiyong or chung, cheong. For some reason, when the Korean alphabet was first translated into the Romanized or English alphabet, they decided that the O sound should be written as E-O, and I will never understand that. Another case where we can see this is the BTS member Jungkook. So a lot of people don't know that his name, if it's spelled correctly, is actually Jeong and then Kook. That's because people outside of Korea don't know that EO makes the O sound because it doesn't make sense. So in the case of Jungkook, he actually spells it Jungkook, which is not the most accurate pronunciation of his name, but it's the best and closest alternative because if he kept it spelled Jungkook, then everyone would call him Jeongkook. And that's not close at all. So he just changed the spelling to Jungkook because it's closer to Jungkook and it's easier for other people to understand that pronunciation. So just remember, if for some reason you're looking up Korean places, that EO makes the O sound, which doesn't have a very good English equivalent sound. So now let's read the paragraph together. The first high school dedicated to K-pop, the High School of Korean Pop and Performing Arts, opened in South Chungcheong Province in 2020. Next paragraph. And soon, future K-pop stars living in Busan, South Korea's second biggest city, will have a school of their own too. So there isn't too much to discuss in this paragraph, but you will notice that when I pronounced second, I didn't give very much emphasis to that D, and it almost sounded like an IN. It wasn't second or second, it's second. So in context, that D will also be dropped a little bit. Dropping the D at the end of an ND word is something that a lot of native English speakers do. So you might notice sometimes with the word and that people will drop that D. So like the popular dish macaroni and cheese. It's and cheese, but no one says the D part, just macaroni and cheese or mac and cheese. So when you drop the D at the end of those ND words, it'll help you sound a little bit more like a native English speaker, if that's your goal. We also have that phrase that's the extra sprinkle of information right here with South Korea's second biggest city. So remember, our intonation will go down when we read that. So let's read this together. And soon, future K-pop stars living in Busan, South Korea's second biggest city, will have a school of their own too. Awesome job. Let's keep moving. The Education Department of Busan, located on Korea's southern coast, has announced that it will be opening a new K-pop high school there in March 2028. This article seems like it's written a little too early. That's in 4 years. Why are we discussing this now? So we have quite a few things to discuss in this paragraph. We will talk about the pronunciation of education. We'll talk about department, this ED in located and announced because they are pronounced differently. And we will discuss Southern. Let's first talk about the word education. Now, because we have this D plus a U sound, D plus U sound, not the letters, this will make a kind of Ju sound, edu. So the word is going to sound like ju shun. Education. Education. It's not edu or education. 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 Now let's look at the word department. Department. You might have noticed that I kind of cut off the T sound, but I still stopped my air. I like to think of this as a karate chop T. So I'm shaping my mouth into the T. I'm pushing the air out, but it will stop. So instead of department, department, department. Now, a lot of native English speakers will do this karate chop for T's in the middle and at the ends of words. But the key thing to remember is you cannot do it if there's a vowel sound afterwards. So in department, there's an M. It's a consonant sound afterwards. And if department was at the end of a sentence and it stopped there, you could do that karate chop, department, and also kind of cut that T at the end. But we do have this vowel sound afterwards with of. So it will sound like department of. So the T will blend over. Now let's talk about these two different ED sounds. So we have located and we have announced. So the reason that we do pronounce the id with located is because of this T. The only time that you can do an id sound is if you have a T or a D. That's it. that will give you the id sound. If you do not have that T or D at the end of the verb, then your ed will sound like a T or a D. So here, announced. So why am I doing a T sound? That's because this is voiceless. When it's voiceless, we'll do a T. So announced. But if it's voiced, we will do that D sound. So for instance, one of the words from our vocab challenge today is compose. And this word is a verb with a voiced ending. Z, compose. So if we add that ed onto the end, it's not composed, it's not compost, it's composed. Composed. Make sense? I'll link below my favorite ed pronunciation chart. I've seriously used it for the past 10 years of teaching, and everyone loves it. So check it out below for some more detailed information on that ed pronunciation. Now I want to look at the word southern. Southern. It sounds like southern. And this is voiced. If you remember, south has that ow sound, like ow, and the th is voiceless. But once we add on that ern, it does become southern. So we have south and southern. They're related, but they sound very different. So now let's read this paragraph together. The Education Department of Busan, located in Korea's southern coast, has announced that it will be opening a new K-pop high school there in March 2028. How were those EDs for you? And did you try that karate chop T sound? Let's continue. The new school will focus on K-pop and performance arts, offering students classes in singing, dancing, composing, and writing songs. The classes will be taught by those with experience in the K-pop industry. Let's first look at the pronunciation of focus. Focus. Now you have to get that long O sound. Faux. And then the CUS actually kind of sounds like kiss. So the word sounds like faux kiss. Focus. Check out this video right here for more detailed information on how to pronounce focus, and you can hear how it's often mispronounced into a really bad word. Yes. Moving along, right here, you'll notice it is classes. Classes. When you have this ES plural at the end of a word, ending with S, it will always make this sis sound. Classes. Did you notice how I pronounced writing? So instead of doing a clear T, writing, I pronounced it with a sort of D sound. Writing. This is a very common thing that at least American English speakers do. We relax a lot of the T's so that they sound like D's. Writing. And the last thing I want to point out is right here. Experience. We have two vowel sounds, E and in. Eence. Experience. Now, with these words that have two vowel sounds right next to each other, it would be really awkward if we pronounce this experience, e-ints, and kind of cut them. So we want to add a transitional sound to blend them together. Our two transitional sounds are the Y and the W. In this case, we're using the Y, but for words that have an O or U sound, we would use a W. We'll discuss that later in this article. And the last thing that I want to point out is a very common mistake with my students, and that's where to give emphasis in the word industry. You want to emphasize that first syllable, industry. It's not industry, industry. So let's read this together. The new school will focus on K-pop and performance arts, offering students classes in singing, dancing, composing, and writing songs. The classes will be taught by those with experience in the K-pop industry. How'd you do? Let's read these next two paragraphs together because they're only one sentence each. The K-pop school will accept students from all over the country, as well as international students. But students from Southeast Asia might not have to travel to South Korea to learn how to be a K-pop artist. Let's look at a few words in here. First, accept. Accept. We have two of the same letter, but both of those letters have different sounds. So it'll sound like ak and then sept. Accept. And here we have that same OU that was in south, but you can hear that it actually has an sound. Country. Country. It's not ow like south. In the second paragraph, I want to point out the 3 EA pronunciations because they're all different. EA is very tricky because it has so many different pronunciations and seemingly no rules for how to pronounce it and when and with which words. It's just something that you have to memorize. So the first one is southeast. We have that E sound, southeast. The second one is Korea, Iya. You can also hear that Y transition sound, Iya. And then the third one is learn, like an ER sound. So here we have all these different kinds. We have the EE, ya, and ER. Yeah. EA kind of sucks. So let's read these two sentences together. The K-pop school will accept students from all over the country, as well as international students. But students from Southeast Asia might not have to travel to South Korea to learn how to be a K-pop artist. Next paragraph. The prestigious School of Performing Arts Seoul, also known as SOPA, is collaborating with Singapore Raffles Music College to open the first international K-pop school in Singapore. That's pretty cool. So with the word prestigious, it is also sometimes pronounced prestigious instead of prestige. Some people prefer prestigious. So you choose your favorite. It doesn't matter. With this acronym right here, SOPA, acronyms are sometimes said with the individual letters SOAPA. You'll notice this with like CEO, but often with names, they are blended together to make a new word almost. So instead of SOPA, this is pronounced SOPA, almost like it's a name. Another key word to check the pronunciation on is college. College is very frequently mispronounced as colleague, which is a completely different word. So for college, it sounds like call, almost like call on a phone, and then lidge, college, college. And one more thing, let's look at this L right here in raffles, raffles. A lot of people have been taught that this L at the end of a word should have an O shape. So raffos. We can also see this with words like table or people. I have heard so many students pronounce these as tabo and peepo, and that's just not correct. So to get the accurate L sound, what I recommend is pulling your mouth out. Table, people, raffle. You might need to look in a mirror to do this, or, get your phone and just watch yourself. Table, people. And if you're still having difficulty, literally just hold your mouth out. I do that practice all the time with my students. We sit there holding our mouths to say table, raffle, people, just so you can practice that accuracy, because it's not O, it's not raffo, tabo, peepo, it's ul. Keep it horizontal, not round. So now let's read this all together. The prestigious School of Performing Arts in Seoul, also known as SOPA, is collaborating with Singapore Raffles Music College to open the first international K-pop school in Singapore. Only 2 paragraphs left. We're almost there. While it's not a dedicated K-pop training school, some of K-pop's most famous stars are graduates of SOPA, including Jungkook from BTS. Hey, we talked about him earlier. So we already discussed that id sound. Because we have the T, it will make the tid sound. Dedicated. We also talked about the OU pronunciation in South and Southern. So here, this OU pronunciation is similar to Southern. So this word will be pronounced with a long A, fe, and then mus. Famous, famous. It's not famous, famous. Now let's look at the word graduates. There are 3 key points that we need to discuss. I'll write it larger down here so that it will be easier to take a look at. So we already previously discussed how D plus U makes a Ju sound. So this will sound like gra-ju, gradu. But what about this A-T-E-S? Usually when A is paired with that magic E, it makes a long A sound. So you might look at this and think graduates. But there are plenty of words that have the same spelling in their verb and noun or adjective forms. The only way to differentiate them is the pronunciation. So for words that have this A-T-E sound at the end, the verbs will have the long A, but the nouns or adjectives will have an IT sound. It. So this is not graduates because that would be a verb. This is graduates. It's. And finally, I had mentioned before that we would talk about that W transition. So we need some kind of transition between these two vowel sounds. Because we have this O or U sound, we will not use Y. Instead, we are going to use a W. Graduates. Graduates. So the O or U sound, when it transitions to another vowel, has the W. Wits. Does that make sense? Let's read this all together. While it's not a dedicated K-pop training school, some of K-pop's most famous stars are graduates of SOPA, including Jungkook from BTS. And finally, we're on our last sentence. The Singapore school plans to open its doors to its first 75 students in the second half of 2024. So the only thing here that I really want to point out is that pronunciation of 70 in 75. It can be really easy to get these tens and teens mixed up, so how can you tell the difference between 17 and 70? Well, if you listen carefully, you'll notice that I changed the stress and the clearness of the T. So for 17, it's like this, 17, with a very clear T, 17. But for 70, we'll emphasize the first part, 7, and then we'll do a soft D, 7D. So we have 17 and then 7D. I highly recommend checking out this video for a more detailed explanation. And again, for that year at the end, you choose. Do you want to say 2024 or 2024? It doesn't matter. So let's finish this up and read our last paragraph together. The Singapore school plans to open its doors to its first 75 students in the second half of 2024. Now let's read the entire thing all together. But if you'd prefer, you can skip ahead to that vocab quiz to this timestamp right here. Okay, let's read the whole thing together. K-pop, short for Korean pop, is one of the world's most popular genres of music, and groups like BTS and Blackpink have huge numbers of fans all over the globe. But becoming a K-pop superstar isn't something that just happens overnight. Many K-pop artists have to go through years of intensive training before they can release any music. In South Korea, there are a number of after-school academies for training the K-pop stars of the future. And there are even high schools specializing in K-pop training. The first high school dedicated to K-pop, the High School of Korean Pop and Performing Arts, opened in South Chungcheong Province in 2020. And soon, future K-pop stars living in Busan, South Korea's second biggest city, will have a school of their own too. The Education Department of Busan, located in Korea's southern coast, has announced that it will be opening a new K-pop high school there in March 2028. The new school will focus on K-pop and performance arts, offering students classes in singing, dancing, composing, and writing songs. The classes will be taught by those with experience in the K-pop industry. The K-pop school will accept students from all over the country, as well as international students. But students from Southeast Asia might not have to travel to South Korea to learn how to be a K-pop artist. The prestigious School of Performing Arts in Seoul, also known as SOPA, is collaborating with Singapore Raffles Music College to open the first international K-pop school in Singapore. While it's not a dedicated K-pop training school, some of K-pop's most famous stars are graduates of SOPA, including Jungkook from BTS. The Singapore school plans to open its doors to its first 75 students in the second half of 2024. Now let's jump into our vocabulary quiz. With this quiz, I want you to follow your heart to figure out the answers. Please do not try to look them up on your phone or computer, because that will defeat the whole purpose of this vocabulary challenge. Remember, you are supposed to be listening for context clues, not just thinking about how you can Google something later. And also, who cares if you get some answers wrong? Who are you trying to impress? I'll still be proud of you, even if you get all the answers wrong, because at least you tried, and that's super impressive. So let's begin the vocab quiz. Question 1. What does it mean to compose a piece of music? Is it A, to perform a piece of music, B, to write or create a piece of music, C, to listen to a piece of music, or D, to analyze a piece of music? The answer is B, to create a piece of music. Question 2. How would you describe an intensive training program? Is it A, short and easy, B, relaxed and casual, C, thorough and rigorous, or D, optional and flexible? The answer is C, thorough and rigorous. That means it's really hard. Question 3. If someone dedicates a book to you, what have they likely done? Is it A, they have honored or devoted the book to you, B, they have criticized the book, C, they have spent a lot of time reading the book, or D, they have written the book? The answer is A, they have honored or devoted the book to you. Aw, isn't that sweet? Question 4. In a project, what does it mean to collaborate with others? Is it A, to work independently, B, to compete with others, C, to work together with others towards a common goal, or D, to avoid working with others? The answer is C, to work together with others towards a common goal. But we all know there's that one person in a group project that doesn't help out. Question 5. How would you use graduate in a sentence to refer to someone who has completed a degree? Is it A, she was excited to graduate from the university? B, the graduate was proud to receive the diploma? C, we will graduate next week? Or D, the professor will help the graduate students? The answer is B, the graduate was proud to receive the diploma. Remember, we were looking for that noun version of graduate, not the verb graduate. And in question D, graduate is almost like an adjective to describe the kinds of students. So maybe they're getting their master's degree or PhD. Those are called graduate students. And finally, question 6. What does it mean if an event is considered prestigious? Is it A, it is poorly organized? B, it is exclusive and limited? D, it is unimportant and trivial? Or D, it is highly regarded and respected? The answer is D, it is highly regarded and respected. But if something is prestigious, it's also probably exclusive and a bit limited. So those are close, but not exact synonyms. I have a fun fact about the word prestigious. So nowadays, prestigious means inspiring respect and admiration and having a high status. When we think of the word prestigious, we might picture universities like Harvard or Oxford, or really excellent companies to work for. However, back in the 16th century, prestigious used to mean conjuring tricks and lying. So the meaning didn't have a positive connotation until around the 20th century. So since I learned that fact, now every time I hear the word prestigious to describe schools, jobs, whatever, I can't help but wonder if maybe there's still a little bit of that trickery happening with those kinds of institutions. And now it's time for the final portion of today's study session, writing and grammar time. For this assignment, in the comment section, I want you to write about your favorite kind of music and a memory that you have associated with it. For some extra fun, try to include some of today's vocabulary challenge words. And I know it may seem a little scary to write something that everyone can see, but I will personally go through and correct and give feedback to everybody's writing. So you're getting free writing feedback. Usually you'd have to pay for that. Let's talk about the grammar that you'll need to use for this prompt. Remember, when we talk about things that we like, we use present tense. For example, I like rock music because it makes me feel like a badass. Then you'll switch to past tense when you discuss that memory of a story from the past. For example, I was 13 when I first started listening to rock music, and I bought baggy black jeans with chains so I could look like a metalhead. But I always had the face of a kindergarten teacher. So they didn't make me look as cool as I had hoped. And that's still a problem that I have today. So go ahead and write your answer into the comment section. And remember, the Cam Fam is a judgment-free community of English learners, and everyone is just hoping to improve their own English skills and their confidence so that they can use English in their daily life. It's okay if you make mistakes. No one is expecting your writing to be perfect. I will go through and give you corrections to help you make it perfect. So don't be afraid to write your answer down below in the comment section. I promise that everyone will be encouraging, and if they're not, they will be blocked. So thank you so much for joining me today for our perfect pinpoint pronunciation practice. And if you would like more pronunciation practice, you can check those out over here. Or if you would like another study session style video, you can check that out right over here. So happy studying, and I will see you later. Bye. Your chair is loud. You are loud, and V is loud. Then I will end you both. It has a... Go away. Pronunciation practice.